Right here. Why does it say that? All right. Chapter 2, Lights Out. We'll see how this one goes. At least I won't have to be reaching up to the screen and fiddling. So, let me know. Mark was worried about his family. As he walked to his Jeep to get the map, he thought about how he was going to get them home. Jessica, his wife, and David, his 13-year-old, were at the junior high. He knew there was no way Jess's newer SUV was going to start. Samantha was at the high school, where she was a junior. The junior high was only about 3 miles from the house, but the high school was a lot farther than that. Mark wasn't really sure, but he figured it was between 10 and 12 miles. A long way to walk, but not nearly as long as the 26 miles he might have to walk just to get home. It was comforting to know that they should be safe at the schools until he could get there. As he was walking back into the building, he heard a car start. It was Joe Babcott's old Volkswagen Rabbit. He walked over to the car. "Hey, Joe, it looks like you're going to be Mr. Popular." "Yeah, lucky me. I bought this diesel Rabbit for the gas mileage, not because it was EMP proof. Look, Mark, I've got to get home. I think I'm just going to bug out right now." "Joe, I don't know how smart that would be. Everybody's going to hate you if you just leave, and they won't forget it when the power comes back on either. Why don't you just stay long enough to hear what Mr. Rosenberg and the department heads come up with? Probably they just want you to give a ride to the people who live closest to you. If not, and you don't like the plan, you can leave then." "I guess you're right. The whole thing is just kind of freaking me out. I'm sorry." "Don't worry about it. We all feel the same way. And if my Jeep would start, I'd think about leaving too. Now, what part of town do you live in?" When Mark got back to the break room, there were 3 people waiting for him. 2 had diesel pickups. 1 had a diesel Cadillac. Fortunately, nobody had a 1984 diesel Oldsmobile Sierra. Oh my. Mark was encouraged that perhaps the old diesel pickup he had at home would run. He unfolded the map on one of the tables and started marking where the diesel owners lived. As he finished, Todd and the department heads came into the room. "So what have you got, Mark?" Todd asked. "We have 4 running cars and trucks, all diesels, by the way. 2 live on the north side, 1 out just west of town, and the last one lives about 25 miles south of town, close to Poteet. What did you all come up with?" "Well, best count, we have 168 people to get home. 2 of the delivery trucks will run, both of the older ones. The new one won't start. Tom thinks he can get the old gasoline flatbed truck maintenance uses to run if he can get a new coil and points and something else I can't remember." "What he called it? Condenser?" Mark asked. "Yeah, that's it. Since it doesn't have a computer, he thinks that's all it will take. Anyway, maintenance is going to build some benches to put in the back of the delivery trucks, and we'll use them like buses. They can hold about 30 people each. While they work on one, Tom is going to take the other to see if he can find the parts for the flatbed. Anyway, we're going to get everyone out into the parking lot and figure out where they need to go." "Todd, my old Jeep probably just needs the same parts the flatbed does. Do you think Tom could pick them up for me while he's out?" "That's a good idea. We'll see if anyone else has an older car that he thinks we can get started as well. You seem to know a little bit about cars. Maybe you can help him," Todd suggested. "Well, I was kind of a gearhead back in high school, but that was all older stuff. I don't know much about these new cars." "It's not the new ones we're worried about, is it?" "I guess you're right." The 2 men walked out into the parking lot. While they were waiting for everyone to assemble, they listened to the radio again. The station was restating what the vice president had said and giving the locations of the FEMA shelters. Mark thought to himself that things would have to be really bad for him to go to one of those shelters. When it looked like most everyone was there, Todd stepped up into the bed of his brand new pickup. It struck Mark as strange that just the week before, he'd been envious of the truck. Now it was serving the most useful purpose it could, as a platform. Just as Todd was beginning to speak, Billy Newman, the head of maintenance, ran up and whispered something to him, then run off back toward the maintenance building. "Okay, this is where we are. We have 2 delivery trucks that will run, and maintenance is going to build some benches for them. We can get you all home in them. It won't be comfortable, but it's better than walking." Tom and Mark are going to try to get some of the older vehicles fixed. If your car is older and doesn't have a computer, come see one of them, and they'll try to help you. We have 4 folks with personal vehicles that will run, and we're asking them to carpool some of you home if you live close to them. We have several hundred gallons each of gas and diesel for our trucks, and anyone who helps take people home is welcome to some. Billy just told me that the gasoline generator is working and that he can get the bobtails ready pretty quickly now that they can use the power tools. Tom was going to take one of the bobtails to get parts for the cars, but now that Billy can work on both of them quickly, would one of you who has a running car be willing to take Tom and Mark to the auto parts place? I can take them, one of the men with the diesel pickup said. Thanks, that will help a lot. Okay, Mark has a map of the city, and Billy should be bringing us a board to tack it up on in a minute. Susie has some push pins, and I would like everyone to come up in an orderly fashion and put a push pin where you live. If you don't live in town, then put a pin on the edge in the direction that you live. I know you're all nervous to get home, and we're going to try to work it out so we can get the most people home the quickest. If you live close and want to walk, that's fine. Human Resources has a list of everyone. If you decide to walk, please let them know so that we can make sure we don't lose anyone. Make sure you drink plenty of water before you leave. It's going to be really hot today. I wish we had some canteens or something you could carry some, so you could carry some with me. Excuse me, Todd. It was James Houseman from Human Resources. We have some of those promotional sports bottles left over from last year. Really? How many? At least a couple hundred, I would guess. That's great. All right. If you're going to walk home, see James and get a sports bottle for water before you leave. Todd paused. Here comes Billy with the board for the map. So if you have an older car, see Tom and Mark. If you want to walk home, see James and Mary from Human Resources. Everyone else, get a push pin from Susie and put it on the map. As soon as we get the trucks ready, we'll get started. Any questions? A woman in the back raised her hand. Yes? My mother lives with me, and she's on an electric oxygen pump. She can't go more than an hour or 2 without it, so I really need to get home to check on her. Good point. Does anyone else need to get home quick? About 40 hands went up. Okay. I know we're all anxious, but does anyone else have a life or death situation? No one said anything. Where do you live, Sarah? Mark was always impressed by Todd's ability to remember everyone's name. Over close to the medical center. Mark, do any of the running car owners live close to there? No, Mark answered, but I bet Joe Babcock would be willing to take her. How about it, Joe? Todd asked. Sure thing, Joe responded, giving Mark a grateful look. Cindy and Bill live close to me, so I can take them too. Okay, then you guys check out with HR and get going. Joe, do you need any fuel? No, I filled up last night. Okay, everyone knows what to do, right? About 30 people came over to where Tom and Mark were standing. Mark asked the first one, what kind of car do you have? An 88 Taurus. Okay, everyone, listen. Tom began. If you have a car with fuel injection, we can't help you. Everything since about 1985 has fuel injection, and that means they have a computer. If you're not sure, we can go look. Almost two-thirds of the group left with dejected looks. After looking at several of the other cars and eliminating them for having computers, they were left with 4 cars plus the Jeep and flatbed that they thought they might be easily salvageable. Dave Thompson, the man who volunteered to take Tom and Mark, started up his truck and they all loaded up. On the way, Mark thought about his family and hoped they were okay. A look at the other men told him they were thinking similar thoughts. It didn't seem like it had been a little over 2 hours since the lights had gone off. Things were happening fast. Mark still had the radio in his pocket, so the men listened to it and heard mostly the same news as before, except that the mayor had come on and asked all police and fire personnel to report for duty. He said the new city buses that were propane-powered to reduce pollution weren't working, but that about 20% of the fleet were still the old diesel bus engine buses and that they were still working. He said they were working on a revised route schedule and would be passing it on as soon as it was ready. When they got to the parts store, Mark noticed it was an independently owned store, much to his amazement. He thought they'd all been run out of business by the big chain stores. Tom knew the owner, and they had no problem getting the parts they needed and charging it to the company. Dave figured it would be a good idea to get a new serpentine belt for his truck, and when he didn't have quite enough cash, the owner just put it on an invoice and said that Dave could come back and pay for it when the lights came back on. On the way back, Tom commented on how he could have saved the company a little money by buying at one of the big chains, but that he and Todd thought it was a good idea to support local businesses when they could. It sure paid off for us right now, he added, just trying to get a favor like that from Manny, Joe, and Mac. If their computers are down, they can't even sell a pack of gum. When they got back to work, they decided that the flatbed was the priority, and in less than 15 minutes, they had it running. There was a cheer from a group of onlookers who had come over to watch. Mark really wanted to work on the Jeep next, but he knew everyone else was just as anxious as he was. He told Tom he could wait until last, and Tom thanked him and asked him to drive the flatbed over to Billy. After he delivered the truck, he walked over to Todd and the map. Hey, Mark, how'd it go? We got the flatbed running, and Billy's working on the benches for it right now. He said it should be done in about 20 minutes and should hold 18 or 20 people. How's it going over here? Good. We have 36 to get home still. As soon as the flatbed is ready, we have a group of 17 to take to the northeast side. How about the Jeep? Is it running? Not yet. I told Tom we could work on the others first. How are you going to get home? Well, 3 others and I don't live that far from Dave, so I'm going to ask him to take us home. Take us as soon as everyone else is gone, Todd said. That's good. Well, I better get back to helping Tom. Okay, but make sure you come see me before you go home. Sure thing, Mark answered, wondering what Todd might want. As he was walking over to where Tom was working on the next car, Jim caught up with him. Hey, old bestest buddy in the whole wide world, if you get the Jeep running, will you give me a ride home? Jim asked. Well, of course, under one condition. What's that? If we don't get it running, you help me push it home, Mark said with a sadistic smile. Okay, deal, smartass. Well, since it's my Jeep, I think that's Mr. Smartass to you. Mark and Jim went over and helped Tom with the older cars. As they got them running, the owners would thank them and then drive over to see Todd, pick up some passengers, and head out. Tom couldn't get the third car to start, even with the new parts. They worked on it for a while, but finally had to give up. The dejected owner went to see Todd about getting a ride with someone else. When they got the new parts installed in the Jeep, Mark was nervous as he turned the key. When the CJ caught and fired, his apprehensions faded away. The 3 men climbed into the Jeep and headed over to see Todd. Good, you got it running. You wouldn't want to trade it for a brand new truck, would you? Todd, last week I would have said yes in a New York minute, but today, I think I'll just stick with my old rust bucket. I don't blame you. Do you need some gas? Well, I don't really need it, but I wouldn't mind topping off the tank if that's okay. Sure, why don't you let Tom do that while the 3 of us talk for a minute? Tom nodded at Todd and drove the Jeep over to the fuel storage tanks. Mark, Jim, I want you to come to a meeting here at the office in the morning. What's the meeting about, Todd? Mark asked, wondering what could be so important to meet about when the power would probably still be off. You'll see in the morning, say 7:30. Okay, Todd, whatever you say, Jim said. Hey, where's Dave? Mark asked. Isn't he supposed to take you home? I sent him on with the others. They were getting pretty antsy. Tom's going to take the flatbed and drop me off before he goes home. About then, Tom drove back up in the Jeep. All gassed up and ready to go, he told Mark. Okay, Todd said before Mark could reply. You guys get going, and I'll see you both in the morning. Bye, the 2 friends said in unison. They climbed into the Jeep. Mark put it in gear, and they headed out the gate. End of chapter 2. All right. I don't know how that's all going to go. It's a long book, and my voice, I don't know. And I got other videos to do, so it might just be a chapter a week or something. That would stretch it out quite a ways. Who knows? All right, this is Jerry Diamond, How to Get Out of Babylon. If you listen to this, you are the remnant.